Today, we'll hear from Dr. Fayron Epps from Emory University. As a scholar, she seeks to promote the quality of life for families affected by dementia through research, education, and service. Dr. Epps and our interdisciplinary team have partnered with faith communities to provide the necessary tools and resources needed to support families facing dementia. She has produced evidence-based practices for promoting quality of life for African Americans with dementia and their family caregivers. Today, she'll be discussing how to create dementia-friendly congregations. I recently had the pleasure of talking with Dr. Epps and learning more about her great work. So to get things started, I'll just say welcome, Dr. Epps. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I am glad to be here. Okay, as Sarah mentioned, I am currently an associate professor in the School of Nursing at Emory University, and I'm also the founder of a program called Alter Dementia that we'll speak about today, and it's about creating dementia-friendly congregations. And today I will be giving a report out on the evaluation that we did after our first year, so you can get a little insight into what the program was and how it was received from the faith communities that we work with. So this report that I'll be sharing has been published. The formal title is A Mixed Methods Formative Evaluation of a Dementia-Friendly Congregation Program for Black Churches. So I just want to make sure we all on the same page. I don't want to make any assumptions, but we know dementia does not discriminate by race, age, or gender, but it is hitting certain populations and communities a little bit harder. And so particularly in the African American community, we are twice more likely to be diagnosed or have signs and symptoms of dementia than our white counterparts. And the Latinx community, they're 1.5 times more likely. And so this really, to me, speaks to the urgency of us to find out what's going on, but also for us to find families or just be there for those families that are going through this. There is one statistic I would like to share, and it is by 2030, they're saying that nearly 40% of those individuals that are diagnosed with a form of dementia will be Black or Latino. So that's less than 7 years away. Again, I want to stress the urgency for us to do something for all, right? But if we are working with any congregations or families of color, we want to make sure that we put things in place for them and to support them. There's also a lot of fear and shame and just a lack of knowledge around this overall. But again, a lot of my work is in the Black community, but I'm sure this can be applied to many other communities. But there's that we don't know about it, right? We don't know what dementia is. We have all these other names for it. The fear of the unknown, shame. So we do know about it and we become embarrassed. Many of the families I work with, the caregivers say, I mean, they're embarrassed because people are going to look at them because I have my mom with 5 coats on and it's 100 degrees outside. So they're going to look at me. Why you got your mama dressed like that? Not understanding the true, what is going on with dementia. And then in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area I work at, there's a lot of influential Black families, right? And they reach out to me in confidence, but they will not let it be known because it may also speak to, oh, they may not be so influential now, or be able to get things done. And we may even see this with our pastors. I've had many where their congregation is writing their sermons because we don't want everyone to know what's going on. So I just kind of want to share that. And again, I understand that you all may be seeing this in other communities, but particularly in the Black community, I've been seeing this. And my goal is to raise this dementia awareness and to reduce that stigma by enhancing empathy so people can come out and talk about this and get the support that they really, really need. So I think I'm gonna be preaching to the choir here about the importance of the church. But many times when I'm going out to scientific conferences, I have to make this case. Why are you doing this program in the faith community? And there's many other places we can do, true, but I am a woman of faith. I know how important my church or the church has been for my family throughout everything. And so that's not just for me. I know that it's for many other families. And we have a lot of reports like from the Pew Center that talks about, the Black community being highly religious or going to church. Barna also has some reports on this as well. And so why not? Especially in the Black community, if we think about church, it's not just a place of worship, it was a place of support, right? It was a safe place for them. It was a haven. And if you can think about 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, this is the place where many Black individuals can come and they can feel like, okay, I can get respect. My voice can be heard. So there's a lot of history that comes with the church, and you think about the movements that started in the church, especially with the civil rights movement. And so to me, I just don't take this lightly. Me working with faith communities, I really take this to heart because I know so much has started and has been going on in the Black church to help with the livelihood of Black families and the Black community. I believe faith communities, they can provide resources, education, in addition to being spiritual and social support for families. So my program is called Alter. It was created in 2019 to address the lack of resources and awareness around dementia in the Black community, especially in our churches. And the whole goal was for us to start in Georgia, and I'll tell y'all where we're at in a little bit. But I had a community advisory board. I moved here about 7.5 years ago from New Orleans, and I was like, what do I do? What kind of research do I do? And so I spoke to people in the community, at the bus stops, doctor's office, and even some key leaders in the community. And they talked about dementia, not knowing about it, aging in place, and how we needed to start with the church. And so some other things happened, and I'm like, okay, we're going to start there. And so we started off by educating. And when we did the education, we thought many times everyone, a lot of people think, just educate, go out in the community, educate, educate, educate. And that's great. I'm not going to knock that. I'm an educator. But what happens after the education? I had a bishop come to me and say in the vestibule of a church after a community forum, and he said, Dr. Epps, there's some good education, but what am I supposed to do with it? And I did not have a response to him. And I took that back to my team and I said, we have a problem. Because we're pushing out all this education and now people want to do something, but we don't have nothing for them to do. And that's when we were able to really come together and form this program and secure money to help us move forward. And so, I gave you the reason why we started off in the Black community, and our aims are to increase awareness about dementia, develop a supportive, dementia-friendly infrastructure. And so that's looking at the environment and the program, and create a community that will support the well-being of Black individuals living with dementia and their families. So many of these families that I do work with feel that they're just to the left to the wayside, right? No one cares about them, not even people in their community and also outside of their community. We can talk about all the disparities that exist, how it's hard to access resources, all of those things I hope many of us know exist. Till this day in 2023, these things are going on. And so we wanted to make sure that we create a community for them. And Alter has a 3-pronged approach, right? And so when I'm going in a community, me and my team, we're educating, empowering, and we're trying to alter people's perception and attitude toward dementia. And then when they work into our program, we're asking them to create supportive programs, services, implement education and awareness initiatives. And also what makes our program stand out is we address, I'm sorry, he was doing good. We address worship with our senior pastors, letting them know what needs to be done based on my research and research that has been conducted around the world, and having those conversations with them on how to adapt their worship service. And if it's not every Sunday, it can be the fifth Sunday. And I've published articles on dementia-friendly worship service in the Black church, dementia-friendly church in the African-American community as well, where I heard from persons living with dementia and these caregivers on what they want, what they needed in order for them to return back to church. So, made it to my breakout question. I hope it wasn't too soon. But the first question is, hopefully I didn't give away the answers to this, but what things do you think the church body can do? Can't see the other question. To combat the disparities associated with dementia. So not just in the Black community, just in all communities, what can we do as a church? So don't worry about this. I just have to put this here, right? Don't try to read it. I have an article that this is published in, but I just want to let you all know that this is a logic model for those that are not familiar with this. And when you're doing any type of programming, and I work with a lot of public health professionals, you have to think it all the way through. What's our inputs, outputs, goals, just to make sure that you stay on course. And I just wanted to share with you all, this was a lot of work, but that this is just not something we just made up and say, oh, we're going to go do. Now, initially we did do that, but somebody stopped us in our tracks and say, wait, what's your outcomes and what's this and that? And I was like, oh no. So we had to sit down and we took a team and we really thought about this over several months. So I just wanted to kind of share this with you, and I'll make sure I share the link to the paper that this is published in, because then you can look at it and see, hey, maybe how you can adopt it or revise it so it can fit for you. So I will be in the next few minutes talking about the evaluation of us implementing this with a few churches in our first year. And our goal was to determine if there was any gaps when supporting the churches to become dementia friendly. We wanted to know, how can Alter best support partnering churches as the program continues to enroll more churches? Also, this happened during COVID-19. I have to tell you all, I signed my first church partner January 2020, and everything shut down, March the 14th or the 15th, 2020. So COVID-19 played a big part in this first year of us rolling it out. How useful are the activities and modifications that we're asking the churches to do? So not just how useful, how helpful, and then how difficult were they to implement? And so these are the things that we asked in our program evaluation. So as we did this, we had a guided online survey that we provided, and it was branched out. It was, again, I'm so glad to work with public health and to work with students that can really set that up for me. But it just we have an initiative checklist of the things churches agree to do, and we turned that into a survey and found out, was this helpful? Was this useful? Was it difficult for each item? And our faith communities are required to select 16 initiatives that they will implement over 2 years to become dementia friendly. We also did focus groups with our leaders, our ambassadors from each church, and we did key informant interviews. And so I actually had someone else conduct this program evaluation, where they interviewed the staff as well to hear our feedback. So for this first year, we had 9 church partners participate. 9 church partners. So 8 church partners participated in the survey, 7 participated in the focus group, and then they received feedback from myself and the program coordinator, which is Mia Chester. So what did we find? All right. So let's take a little time here so you'll know about the churches that we were working with. And so you'll see we had small, medium, and 1 mega church. The church generations, you can see, most of them would say that they were baby boomers or above the age of 57. It was all predominantly Black churches. And then where they were located, at this time, we started off in Georgia, but we also had 1 church in Chicago that participated. So the data that I'll present will be look at what activities were chosen by our church partners and the status of their implementation. So hopefully some of these activities will match up with what you might have said in the breakout session. Let's see. So this is made, because it's hard to put this on the slide. We was like, how we can best do this, but this is these are some activities that they had to implement, and these are core activities, and you'll see the dark brown are the ones that chose to implement this. And so every church assigned this to a ministry. That's on this first block. Then 9 of the churches make sure we ask them about lighting and handicap accessible. Then we talk to them about signage. And so with our signage, we're encouraging them to have big signs, and we provide them a guidebook where this is how you print your signs, this is where you should order them, this is what it looks like, but making sure exit, restroom, and any other major places in the churches has signage. When we do badges, we encourage all faith leaders, ushers, greeters to wear some type of badge. Physical means physical assistance into the church. So at this point, we were asking them to make sure that this is available so when people were coming to church, that someone can help them if they needed it. Quiet means quiet room. We were asking our churches to pick a room in their church that can be that quiet room. So if that person living with dementia during worship service was to have some challenging behaviors, that there was a place that they can go and they didn't have to leave the church. And we gave them tips on how to set up the quiet room, maybe to have headphones in there, have activities that they can do. Pathways, we talked to the churches about making their hallways and have clear pathways, because we had some churches, they had just plants everywhere. And I'm like, how can we get through here? And so we just showed that to them and opened up their eyes. How, yes, this is beautiful and this is nice, but is this really accessible? And then we do a workshop called Dementia-Friendly Workshop for Church Leaders. And so we were asking many of our churches to send ambassadors or representatives to those workshops. And so this is our first year. So I got to let y'all know, we made this, these are things that they can pick that first year. But I have to tell you all right now, we've made them mandatory. After the first year, these are all mandatory for all of our faith community partners moving forward. And so support, remember I said those three-pronged approach: support, education, and worship. And so under support, these are some activities that we were asking them to select, and you'll see the number of people who selected. So cafe is memory cafe. So we were introducing this to the Black churches and to faith communities, what memory cafes were, and encouraging them to do that. Group, it stands for support group. And this could be a support group for the caregiver, care partner, or also for that person living with dementia. Because I don't want y'all to remember, they need support too. I'm part of a group called Black Dementia Minds. So it's Black individuals living with dementia that meet every week on Wednesday at 4:00 Eastern time. And so they need support as well, just to keep living fully with this diagnosis. Then having a resource library. And a lot of our churches pick that because that's pretty easy to do, because we give them books. We give our churches a starter kit. So they have books, pamphlets, and handouts. They can start this library. Respite is something else that we was encouraging them to do. And so this first year, you'll see that only one person chose respite. But I wish I can come back and tell y'all, like 4 years into it, that mostly everybody is choosing respite. But we educate them on how important respite is. And it does not have to be a formal program, y'all. It can be you taking $50 and providing it to a care partner or caregiver so they can pay someone to just give them a break for a few hours. It can be just that simple. It can be financial respite. Sometimes they need to use that money to buy supplies, because we see how the cost of food and gas is going up. Imagine the cost of medical supplies that they may need, such as incontinent briefs. Education is another thing, and supportive education is not your general awareness education. This is more like self-care for that caregiver, something that's going to help them along the journey. Having right here, this social is having some type of navigator present in your church, or you're working with an organization that can help navigate families to resources. So that's what social is. Under education, we had churches select Memory Sunday. And I'm not sure anybody could do this, but within the Black church, and there's an organization called Balm in Gilead, they have identified the second Sunday in June as Memory Sunday, and they asked all Black faith communities across the country to use this Sunday to provide education or awareness. The AME church particularly has Purple Sunday, which is usually, I know some of them do it on different times of the month, but most of the time it's in November. But here I've had churches, they just pick a Sunday and say, that's our Memory Sunday. And so it's an easy way to start bringing awareness. They can wear purple, just hand out pamphlets, whatever it may be. We also talk about doing education and including the youth here. And these are just your general education forms. We talk about also providing education such on a website, doing mailings. So not just having something in person, but what are some other platforms you can use to provide education to your congregation? We've had some churches in there, they do these weekly newsletters or something they email out to their members, and they just have a little blurb, 2 sentences about like pearls of wisdom as it relates to dementia. It's just things like that. Virtual status is also saying we work with a group called Second Wind Dreams, but we do virtual dementia tours, and I know there's other groups that do them as well. Having your congregation go through that, and that's what we asked our churches to do. And you can see here, you can see again what church selected these things. So this first year, nobody selected virtual, but they many people selected putting education on their website, any newsletters and any things like that. So remember, this was COVID-19 time as well. Next was worship service. All right, this is the hardest conversation for me to have with faith leaders when we're implementing this program. And so we speak with them about the length, how they can simplify the service, using familiar biblical scriptures, sermons, having memory support staff available, and these are ushers or greeters that have been trained through us or another program that know how to support persons living with dementia. If there was an event at church or service, they know how to approach them. And I know in my breakout room, someone mentioned like the TIPA SNOW, the positive approach. And that's what we encourage our faith leaders and the ushers to go through. A high proportion of music. This was mentioned also in my breakout. You want to have that in your worship service. And it's really key to know who has dementia so you can pick that type of music they like. Because if it's someone that's in their 40s with dementia, the old spiritual hymns may not be the music they like, right? It may be, especially in the Black church, it may be some of the new gospel that's coming out. So it's important to know that. You also want to, what I have under modify, I'm sorry, y'all. The order of worship service, I do talk to my faith leaders about that. And the main thing is having announcements at the end. Many people were doing announcements in the beginning, but we know families, they just have this short period of time to be in service. And in the length of service, we recommended 75 minutes or less. We had some churches here in Georgia before the pandemic, it was 3 hours we were in service. And I had to let them know that's hard for the caregiver, care partner, and for that person living with dementia. So I recommended 60 minutes. They pushed back. And so we came to an agreement of 75 minutes. But we also developed online worship services during the pandemic. I received another grant where these online worship services for those with dementia are 6 to 10 minutes in length. And I'll be, afterwards, I can share you a link so you can see how they're set up. All right. And so here, this just talks about what was helpful, what was difficult, what did they use? And so you can see now those activities that we say core or required, 60% said that they were helpful for those support activities. 50% said that they were very helpful. For the education activities, you can see that, we have 29% say completely helpful, 29% say very helpful. Worship experience activities. So surprisingly, 60% said out of the activities they selected was completely helpful. And then we talk about the difficult of the activities, and you can see over majority across all the board, across all the pillars or the sections, you can see they said not difficulty at all, and that would be your blue. And then how useful. And so the required or core activities, 60%, they're using. Worship experience, still it went well, 85%. And again, I think COVID-19 had people really look at things. I think everybody was relooking and revisiting the worship experience during COVID-19. But for your support and education activities, you can see here that, support activities, 33% was moderately using it, somewhat using it. And then for our education, you can see this pie here where 27% was really using it. And then we had 27% that was not doing any type of education. And again, I just have to put this in that this was 2020 when this was being done. So a lot of things that they may have planned to do face-to-face kind of changed it all and, put a monkey wrench in things. And then when we did our focus group, these are the things that came up. COVID-19 impacted their program implementation. Having support from altar staff was good. Understanding the checklist activities and modifications. This was something that, they felt that maybe not have been explained to them. They also brought up some non-COVID barriers to implementing the activities. They appreciated the room for creativity to implement programs. And I didn't tell you all, as part of a partner, we provide our churches a minimum of $1,000 as financial contribution, monetary support, so they can start implementing activities. And we noticed in that first year, they weren't using those funds. And we just went through, when we did this, we looked at, okay, what were the limitations of this formative evaluation? And of course, COVID-19 was on there. Recall bias is something that's pretty common. Also, a lot of the churches that came on board that first year, they had a relationship with me from the work that I've done in the community. And many of our faith communities, they filled out this survey. We had like 2 time points. At first we was doing 6 months and 12 months. And then we had some where they only did it at 1 time point. So the next breakout question is, what would be additional meaningful data to collect from churches and their parishioners when implementing a program like this, or implementing a program that you're thinking of? So hopefully I cannot wait to hear what else additional information you have that maybe we can collect in the future, or what y'all are doing. But since we implemented this, if you remember, I said that we signed our first church in January 2020. So we almost at 4 years, and we have been able to partner with slightly over 70 faith communities in 14 states, which is amazing. If y'all remember, I started off like, oh, I'm just going to do this in Georgia. Then we had the church in Chicago, and it just spread after that. Spread so much, we're like, what in the world? So we're trying to slow down in 2024, but I don't think it's going to happen. And we've had we have been able to invest over $95,000 back into our faith communities. And so remember, I said I provide the financial contribution, but we also partner with other organizations to help our churches sustain the programs that they're implementing by providing scholarships. So we partner with Us Against Alzheimer's. We partner with Respite for All Foundation. That's out of Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah, that's right. The Parkinson's Foundation. We also partner with the Sleep Foundation. And so we just find partnerships so we can give back to our communities, and they can keep these programs and sustain them. So our partnership with our churches are for 2 years. We provide them a welcome box, which is like their starter kit. They do sign a memorandum of understanding. So we don't partner with just any church that say, yeah, we want the money. No. No, it's a memorandum of understanding that we go through, so they'll know what we expect of them and what they can expect of us. They will agree to do 16 initiatives. We provide the monetary support. And then after 2 years, they have an opportunity to renew their partnership and become legacy partners. But at 2 years, they can say, no, this is not for us. No one used anything. And that's fine as well. But if they become a legacy partner, they can stay within our network, and they can benefit from a lot of the scholarships and programs that we offer. I do want to put a plug in. I know it's going to be so hard for me to partner with every church out there to bring this program, but my faith leaders, they say we got to come together and learn more and bring others, even if they don't want to be a partner. And so we are doing a Alter Dementia Summit, which is where our theme is the role of the Black church. It would be April the 25th through the 27th next year. It's at House of Hope Atlanta in Decatur, Georgia, with Pastor Dr. Dewey Smith. So we're excited that they will be hosting us. We'll have a gospel explosion and a day and a half of just learning different things that faith communities can bring back to their church, and then address a lot of the disparities relates to brain health and dementia. I know this is late notice, but anybody that would like to present any of their programming work or research, We are accepting abstracts because my goal is to bridge the gap between researchers and our Black faith community. So I want to make sure that they're exposed to research, they meet the scientists and those behind this great work that's being done. And hopefully they can also take from that and be able to implement it in their congregation. So if anybody online is interested, please email me because I know the 17th is tomorrow. So that might be a short notice, but I can make some exceptions. Right, there we go. Did I stay within the time? And you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We put a lot of tips out. So it's not just for our partners. We have tips for all congregations that they can just read through and hopefully implement.
Well, one thing I wanted to do, Dr. Epps, is just to remind you if you can mention the Faith in Action, and maybe if you have a link to put that in the chat or describe briefly what that is.
Yeah, and so as a result of all of this, and those partnerships are formed to really address the disparity as it relates to dementia, we partnered with Us Against Alzheimer's and developed a Faith in Action toolkit. And we mailed a brain health box to 42 churches across the country. And this is the box that our churches received. And it was full with church fans, buttons, just links to information. And then one of the things is there is this Faith in Action toolkit. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can download it, but it is a book that you can give faith communities, and it gives them resources, how to start a respite, how to do dementia-friendly worship services, all stats, all different things are in this toolkit that they can use. Someone asked, do you have some more printed? I have a couple, but we're working to secure additional money that we can print these and be able to hand them out. So I'll put the link in the chat. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, wonderful. And someone did ask too if you could include your contact information in the chat. And then maybe somewhat related to that, Thad had said, you know, if someone wants to get involved with Alter, how do they do that? How do they learn more?
Yes, I will put that in the chat as well. We do informational sessions every third Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. You all are welcome, where we go into really detail of what are the details of the program, and please share it with others.
Great. While people are thinking about questions, I'm going to throw one out there. I was intrigued and have seen a lot as well, just the stigma and the fear around dementia. Have you been able to look at in your congregations whether some of those factors do change as a result of the dementia-friendly congregations? And do you think awareness is enough, or what other things can churches do to help reduce some of that stigma and fear?
Yeah, I think it's more than just awareness. I think it's going to be a combination of things, right? We want to make sure that our congregation is aware and knowledgeable, but we want to provide support too. So just because someone's knowledgeable, it doesn't mean that, the congregation is knowledgeable, I'm going to share everybody, share what's going on. But if they see the support and the resources that may be available to them, then they will open up and hopefully share. But, I think this is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take us all. It takes a village for people to understand and be there to support each other so we can have that enhanced empathy. It was something you asked before that, measuring it, right? And so, like I said, we just started this, and we was like, wait, we got to slow up. We did the logic model, and we received a grant to develop a tool, because I was hoping there's a tool out there to measure dementia friendliness, but there's really not. There's frameworks, but there is no really survey tool that we can just use and adapt it to our respective congregation or community. And so we're in the process of testing that right now. We did focus groups and we developed it. And so now we're going out and giving it out to our churches. We have 800 congregations that have completed it already. And we need about 400 more. So we're hoping by January, we'll have those results. And that's within that, we're asking some of those questions that can get to what you asked, Sarah.
Great. Well, that's exciting. There are a couple questions in the chat, but let me just pause and see if anyone on the call wants to unmute and ask a question before I ask a chat question.
I'm actually really curious. I apologize. I'm in a cafe. My volume is not good. Just mute me and I'll type it in. But if there's been unintended consequences or unintended benefits of churches implementing some of your recommendations, for example, like this, your recommendations specifically help those with dementia, but I'm wondering if other populations, they've seen improvements across the board because of the recommendations you've made.
Oh, it's such a great question, Laura. And we actually noticed this early on, and we put this in one of our early papers. Individuals that are living with autism really benefited from some of these modifications and changes we're encouraging our churches. And so we had families and faith leaders see that, hey, this is just not for dementia. This is for a lot of other people. And they appreciated that. And I had one pastor, he actually called me, he was from Arkansas, and he said that a family had called them and said, thank you. Thank you. My wife has a chronic illness. My child has a learning disability, and you are putting things in place that allow us to come back to church. So that was a great question. Thank you, Lauren.
There was a question about the memory cafes. Can you describe kind of what those are?
I call them, I'm not going to give it the textbook definition. My definition is a safe place to come and hang out. That's how I look at it, right? It has no set agenda. It's a judgment-free zone. And so this is for families. So it's the caregiver care partner and a person living with dementia that can come. They can come to the church, or you can do the memory cafe somewhere else. But it's that social gathering. And so our faith communities, they have done where it's art, where they set art things up, and they just have the families come. Engage in that. Again, it's that safe space for them. And what this church did, they also invited the youth in there. And so it was really, really beautiful. But again, it's just like a place they can come and gather. They can have coffee. You can invite someone in to just provide some entertainment, but it does not have to be gospel music. It's, again, a comfortable place where they can come and gather.
Yeah, I absolutely love the flexibility in your program. So some general ideas, but how churches put it into place can differ.
Yes.
There was a question, do you know what's driving the higher rates of dementia in communities of color? We see that we have an Alzheimer's disease registry here in South Carolina, and, same statistics you shared. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the statistics are not just United States. We just came back from Ghana in May, and it's there too. Like, it is crazy. But one of the things here specifically I can speak about in the US, some literature has linked it to many of these risk factors that I try to go out and teach about dementia. But it is in the Black community and communities of color, we tend to get vascular dementia. And vascular dementia is a dementia that's directly related to cardiovascular diseases that are more prevalent in communities of color. And so I'm going to talk about the Black community because that's where I work with, but that's your hypertension, your strokes, many strokes, TIAs, diabetes, just all of these things that are really prevalent in our community. And for many reasons, right? Of course, family history, but you have to look at where they live, right? What's in place in their neighborhood? Can they access different things? Can they access healthcare that then puts them at risk for hypertension and these things like that? Racial discrimination, I want to say over a year ago, some literature came out about that, how that contributes to cognitive decline, especially in Black men. So it's so many things. It's so hard to pinpoint. But when I go out in the community, I talk about the 6 pillars of brain health, and I just encourage all to engage in those 6 pillars of brain health. So hopefully we can reduce our risk. But again, in communities of color, we tend to get vascular dementia, which is directly related to cardiovascular diseases that are more prevalent in our communities. And then I would say it's just not race and ethnicity. You can see a difference also down south.
Mhm.
You know, I'm from Louisiana. We all eat the same thing. We all so we all have hypertension. We all have these things. And so you'll see that, you know, again, you have an increased prevalence in all race and ethnicities in some areas.
Yeah. So in a self-serving way, I was glad to have it come to that, given I'm very interested in healthy eating and physical activity in Black churches, and just the role that both of those play in dementia development, as well as managing caregiver stress. So,
And then Sarah, I hate to say the 6 pillars of brain health general, and I don't tell you all what they are, but number 1 is social engagement. Number 2 is brain engagement. Number 3 is managing stress. Number 4 is getting some rest. And that is 7 to 8 hours a night consistently. Let's see who on the call really does that, but we need to try. And then the next one is eating right or trying your best, just being careful of your diet, and then physical activity. And as you go out and you work with your faith communities, your family, just encourage, we all know what keeps our heart healthy. Whatever keeps your heart healthy, keeps your brain healthy.
right. Okay. Excellent. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.